Well, the Royals and the Chiefs got what they wanted in the overnight hours, courtesy of the state of Missouri. At least on the Senate side, the Missouri Senate passing Senate Bill 3 early this morning, also known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act. And this will help both the Chiefs and the Royals, but it could apply to other teams as well down the road, pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at the stadiums. It passed the full Senate in the early morning hours at about 2 a.m. by a vote of 19 to 13. The bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium. Now, to qualify, stadiums have to have more than 30,000 seats, must serve a professional baseball or football team, sorry, Kansas City Current, and must cost at least $500 million. So there were stipulations in this bill that made it basically exclusive for the Chiefs, the Royals, and the Cardinals. Sorry to the XFL team over there in St. Louis. I don't think they would necessarily qualify.
Yeah, Battlehawks probably wouldn't get that money.
Yeah, I don't think so. So this now goes to the House. The House will start its special session in the days to come. But this was the biggest hurdle, which means to me, the thought of either of these two teams going to the state of Kansas, this is just my opinion, is probably dead. This is what the two teams wanted. They wanted to basically use the Star Bond offer to squeeze Missouri. And they did it, and they did it very effectively. Remember, 1 year ago, we were sitting here in Jackson County, and we were waiting for a 3/8 cent sales tax extension. Now, fast forward 15 months, and not only are the teams getting a massive investment from the state of Missouri, they're also going to go back to Jackson County and or Clay County and say, let's talk. Could things colossally fail at the local level? I suppose, yeah, they could. But they're already now getting a big nut from the state of Missouri, assuming this thing passes the House, which was always going to be the easier hurdle, and then ends up on Governor Kehoe's desk. So actually, you can make the case the teams may end up better with this deal than they would have back in April of 2024.
Quentin Lucas was right.
Well, let's not get carried away, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're
not doing any Quentin Lucas victory laps right now. John Sherman, do a victory lap. Clark Hunt, do a victory lap. Mike Kehoe, he wanted this. He put a lot of political capital at stake. Do a victory lap. Quentin Lucas, pump the brakes for a second.
Still have some time for that one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, trust me, he's going to do a victory lap. He'll be on the show at 7:30 this morning. He'll be doing cartwheels and the whole deal. Because he did not want to be the mayor that was in charge of this town during record homicides and losing one or two professional sports teams. Even though it wouldn't have actually been his fault had that happened, it would have been a county issue, it would have been a state issue. It really wouldn't have been a Kansas City issue had these two teams left. Still, history would have said and looked at Quentin Lucas and been like, you were the mayor during the time the Chiefs and or the Royals left. He didn't want that on his resume. And I don't believe he's going to get it now. Now, I never really thought he was going to get it. But now, with the Senate passing this bill last night or this morning, 19 to 13, he's definitely, I don't believe, going to have to worry about that. These two teams, I believe now, are going to stay in Missouri. I always thought they wanted to stay in Missouri. But they had this great piece of leverage. And that leverage was called the state of Kansas, who wanted to roll along with a border war with these Star Bonds. So now it's like, okay, what happens from here? It'll go to the House, and it will likely pass the House, and then it will go to the desk of Mike Kehoe. But this all happened at about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. I was supposed to have a couple of the state senators on early this morning, but they were on the Senate floor till like 4 a.m. So I'm pushing them back till later in the morning. We're trying to get a hold of Curtis Gregory, who was the sponsor of this bill, and then also Joe Nicola at Independence, who was on the show earlier this week as well. Now, there's a couple other things that also passed in the early morning hours, somewhat tied to, obviously, what Mike Kehoe wanted to achieve when it comes to the special session. Senate Bill 1 appropriates money to the Department of Economic Development for the Missouri Housing Development Commission. That passed by a vote of 23-10. That was just a bunch of infrastructure funding that would help a lot of Democrat districts. Democrats helped get this bill passed because they got what they wanted when it came to infrastructure funding. And this was a statement from the Senate Democrats in Jeff City early this morning that read as follows. Coming into special session, Senate Democrats wanted an increase in storm relief funding directed to St. Louis, full funding for the MU Cancer Reactor, a new mental health hospital in Kansas City, and the assurance that no stadium project moves forward without local support. We achieved all of these goals and more. That was the statement early this morning from Senate Democrats that came down at 2:30. Now, the other bill that passed, as you heard them mention there, was the expedited disbursement of funds from the Missouri Housing Trust Fund for emergency aid. That's basically tornado relief in St. Louis, and that passed by a vote of 29-4. What about tornado relief for the Porta-John out at the K? Any tornado relief happening on this side of the state for that porta potty that got knocked over?
They will rebuild.
Yes. KC strong, baby. Oh, man. So these two teams, they 1 week ago, I said I thought that it was going to pass the Senate. On Friday, I wasn't so sure because there was a lot of drama coming into the special session. But now it has gotten through, the Senate has adjourned, and everything moves over to the House. The Chiefs and the Royals got the state funding that they wanted. The state of Missouri, no pun intended, was willing to play ball. And now it goes back to a local conversation. And I hope, what I really hope from these teams is that now they cleared the state hurdle, we can look at this and say, where do you guys want to be and what do you want? Just tell us, please. If you have a little bit of respect for the taxpayer, forget the fan. Okay, this is a taxpayer deal. If you have a little bit of respect and decency for the taxpayer, just show a plan. Even if you don't 100% commit to the state of Missouri right now, just say, hey, we got this option on the Missouri side. This is what we're looking at. Thank you to the state of Missouri. Thank you to the constituents. And let's just move the ball forward here. You've got to now give, first off, the legislators who put their, I don't want to say they put their careers on the line for you, but listen, they stuck their necks out there. Doling out millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars to sports teams is not like wildly popular. We understand why it happens. We get the way of the world, but it's not wildly popular. The least you can do for the senators who voted for you here, and then also your constituents around the entire state of Missouri, many of whom will never go to a Chiefs game and never go to a Royals game, just be like, hey, here's what we got lined up for Missouri. If we can close this deal, this is what we want to do, and this is where we want to be. That would be a nice and responsible gesture at this point from these two teams who haven't really shared anything when it comes to their plans, their wants, or their needs on, frankly, either side of the state line at this point. 913-408-7957. The saga may be coming to an end after what happened in the overnight hours. The Missouri Senate, by really one or two votes, technically two votes, 19-13. They needed 18 votes in the Senate to pass it. They got 19 votes to allow the Chiefs and the Royals to tap into some state funding to pay back for renovations or a new stadium for the Chiefs and the Royals. A big win for Kansas City, but the deal is not done yet. 913-408-7957. If we're finally done, hallelujah. Woo!
I don't think we're done yet. Don't
Probably
get too excited.
I know. We're closer to being done, though.
That's true.
And we are. Although this has given us a lot of content over the last 15 months. Guy Benson will be here 1 week from tonight on the text line, 913-408-7957. Good morning, Pete. I listened to Guy Benson's show yesterday. I hope you booked fantastic accommodations for him. The Holiday Inn Express is not going to cut it. Well, who are you to say the Holiday Inn won't cut it for Guy Benson? What about the Days Inn in Ellis, Kansas, where they arrested Thomas Tolbert the other day? You think that'll work? Maybe too far of a drive for him. But.
That Holiday Inn's right across from Casey's Pizza, right? Yeah. Casey's gas station. Right?
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Guy's going to do just fine, okay? He'll be okay. Don't worry. He will be taken care of. If he doesn't like his visit to Kansas City, it will not be because of our accommodations for him. He will be doing just fine. I promise you that. And the event is officially sold out for next week. So we look forward to seeing a lot of you out there. It is going to be a fantastic time. The breaking news in the overnight hours came out of the Missouri State Senate. The funding for the Chiefs and the Royals has passed the biggest hurdle. And that, of course, is the state Senate. It got through by one vote last night, 19-13. So if you're on the Kansas side and you're a legislator over there, well, I would let the Star Bond deal expire at the end of this month. If these two teams come back to you and they say, hey, we need a little more time still. I know that Missouri passed this thing at the state level, but would you guys extend the Star Bond? Don't do it. You're getting played. Now, this was the biggest hurdle that had to be cleared to, I think, keep these teams in the state of Missouri. There still will have to be some kind of a local deal with Jackson County for the Chiefs, maybe Clay County for the Royals, or Jackson County for the Royals. I don't really know. What I do know is that 15 months ago, there was no state deal at all on the table. It was just keep the 3/8 cent sales tax rolling, and the Royals were going downtown, and the Chiefs were staying at Arrowhead. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this deal with the state of Missouri, so I wonder if any kind of local deal would be just icing on the cake. Do you really need a local deal? If the state deal now pays for 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium, Senate Bill 3, the Show Me Sports Investment Act. Do they truly need Jackson County if you're the Chiefs? I mean, they probably do just because the county owns the stadium, right? So you're going to have to figure out something. But what do you actually need? Here's what the Chiefs would do if they were smart. They would figure out a way to get the Royals off of the ballot. They don't want to be on the ballot with the Royals anymore. The Royals are the far more controversial part of this deal. They would have their own sales tax that would actually be less than 3/8 cent. They would kick some money back to the taxpayer and say, hey, we're going to actually cut your taxes. Instead of 3/8 cent, we need, let's say, 1/5 cent. I'm just making up the number here. And they would put themselves on the ballot in Jackson County, and they would have voters go to the polls maybe this fall in the middle of football season, and they would try to get some sales tax revenue, but they could bill it as a tax cut. That's what they could do. Now, what would that mean for the Royals? What kind of deal would they need from either the county or the city? I don't know, but the Chiefs want to be out on their own anyway. These two teams do not want to be connected at the hip anymore, and frankly, there's no reason for them to be connected at the hip anymore if the Royals want to leave the Truman Sports Complex, which they do. They've made that very clear. So, you know what? Just go at it on your own and tell the taxpayer, we're actually going to give you a tax break here. We want to cut your taxes. We only want 1/5 penny. You're currently giving us 3/8 cent that we're splitting with the Royals. And see how that plays out. That would be a pretty big political win, and they would probably get a deal done. And it would pass because the Royals' issues were the reasons that this thing failed anyway back in April of 2024. All right, very fair question on the text line here, 913-408-7957. Breaking news in the overnight hours, the Missouri Senate, which was the biggest hurdle to still clear, has passed what they have called the Show Me Sports Investment Act, basically allowing the Chiefs and the Royals to stay in Missouri. And this bill would pay up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium And this obviously is a huge hurdle that was cleared, probably the biggest hurdle left to clear to keeping these two teams in the Show Me State. So text line question. Pete, you keep saying it would be smart to have the Chiefs go on the ballot and talk about a tax cut to Jackson County voters if they go on the ballot for less than 3/8 of a cent sales tax because they get this big pot of money now from the state of Missouri. But it's not a tax cut because the current tax is expiring. And then theoretically, come 2031, we would pay no taxes for the stadium, correct? If it is, then wouldn't what you're presenting be deceptive politics? I'm just asking. Absolutely. You are absolutely right. That texter is spot on. But politics is oftentimes deceptive, right? One of the main reasons that these two teams lost the vote last year was because people were fed up with their taxes. They were done with how Jackson County had mismanaged the property tax crisis. And the problem for a lot of the pretty people involved in this process with the two teams last year was that they didn't understand the pain of the average Jackson County resident and voter. And the only way for the Jackson County voter to tell certain people, from Frank White to the legislature to Gail McCann Beatty, the only way that they could really tell these people to go pound sand last year was to vote no on this stadium deal and the sales tax extension, whether that was fair or not. So that's where these two teams got caught between a rock and a hard place. Wasn't entirely fair, but that's how it went down. So I'm just saying from a political optics perspective, the thing the Chiefs can do is if the Royals can build their stadium now with just the state and the city of Kansas City, Missouri, it will be the Chiefs who, if they want some local funding from Jackson County, they should cut this sales tax at least in half and say, we're going to cut your taxes in Jackson County. And you know what? Vote for us. We're going to stay at the Truman Sports Complex. We're going to big up Arrowhead Stadium. We're going to make some renovations. And they can do that because of what the state of the Missouri did early this morning. That's how this can play out.
There's a marketing adage, sell the sizzle. You're not selling the steak. You're selling the sizzle, like it used to come out at Jess and Jim's, hot on the plate, and you're like, wow, look at that. That's where they failed. They were selling the stadium and not the sizzle. There was no plan, no package to go at. You're just selling me concrete going, I don't know that we need it.
Yep. And now they've got a chance to right their wrongs and sell that sizzle. We are getting your reaction all morning long to the breaking news here on KCMO Talk Radio. While we were all fast asleep, or at least most of us were fast asleep, the state of Missouri passed in the Senate a 19-13 vote. They needed 18 to pass it. They got 19 votes for Senate Bill 3, known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act, helping professional sports teams pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at and around the stadiums. So that's the big breaking news this morning. And my major takeaway, the teams will stay. I think Kansas is done. And if I'm Kansas and these teams have the balls to come back to me in the next 3 weeks and say, hey, just to be safe, could you extend the Star Bond off for another 3 weeks? If you have any self-respect in Kansas, you will say no. That would be absolutely insane. The only reason to do that at this point in Kansas, the only way you could possibly do that in Kansas is if you've got something beyond what you've currently gotten from these two teams, which so far is really not much outside of like, so you're saying there's a chance. That's where Kansas has been for the better part of 12 months. No one's seen anything when it comes to where these stadiums would go in Kansas. I mean, there's some obvious choices and rumors that are out there. No one knows what a theoretical Star Bond district would look like in Kansas. There's no public proposal out there. I mean, at this point, if you're the state of Kansas, right, you put your best foot forward, you made an offer, you had a deal on the table, right? I mean, you did what you thought you needed to do. And then at the last minute here, up against this relatively made-up deadline of June 30th, which was there just because that's when the Star Bond offer ended in Kansas, Missouri, led by Governor Mike Kehoe, got this offer done. As Quinton Lucas said last hour, it is a better offer, right? Because a lot of what Missouri has on the table is backed by municipalities, counties, and the state. The Star Bond deal doesn't do that. That was always the thing that made the Star Bond offer a much riskier deal. Then you had to figure out how big does this Star Bond district have to be to generate the sales tax revenues to make this a wise investment to pay off the bonds. It was always an overlooked part of this story that I thought never got enough attention. But now, listen, if these two teams were serious about Kansas at all, if they still are serious about Kansas after this deal in Missouri gets done, then you know what? Hold them to their own deadline. The teams have said, most notably the Royals have said, our deadline's the end of June. Do not let them extend this deadline. They have missed every one of their own deadlines going back 2.5, 3 years now. The only way that this can continues to get kicked down the road is if the state of Kansas allows it to get kicked down the road. And all they would be doing would be allowing themselves to get kicked right in the face. That's it. 913-408-7957. Linda is in Liberty. Go ahead, Linda. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning. You talk about Jackson County maybe getting a tax cut. What about the rest of us counties around here? I'm in Clay County. What's happened? Are the players going to kick in some money? How about the owners? Some of us are retired, living on Social Security and maybe whatever we've saved. I just think people who live in big houses and, have all the money to pay, $200 to park, really, can't the players afford to kick in a whole bunch of money? If they want a big, grand stadium, let them pay for it. Some people around here are concerned about losing their homes because of utilities and everything else that has gone up. People that are living in million-dollar houses, making millions of dollars contracts for several years, they all ought to be able to chip in a little bit and make whatever fancy stadium they want. Some of us just want to be able to pay our utilities, buy food, take care of our families.
Linda, listen, you're not alone in that sentiment, and that sentiment crosses all political party lines, and that's part of the reason the vote failed last year in Jackson County. Listen, it's more on the owners. I wouldn't say it's on Travis Kelce to build anybody a stadium or Patrick Mahomes. They're doing their part. They're doing what they're employed to do. But you're right to bring up, and this was the argument on both sides of the political aisle in Jeff City, is this just a basically bailout for billionaire owners? And that's why this was a fairly contentious battle down there. So you're not alone in that sentiment, Linda. I know there's a lot of people out there who feel the same way as you do right now.
But I ask the question, is this tax cut going to go for Clay, Platte, the other counties around?
Well, what do you mean? What tax cut?
Well, you said maybe Jackson County would get a tax cut. You said that a couple of times.
Yeah, well, this is a unique sales tax right now that exists in Jackson County that is 3/8 of a cent that funds the Truman Sports Complex and the upkeep and things like that. So, no, there wouldn't be, but that's because Clay County does not have this 3/8 cent sales tax that currently exists in Jackson.
But I'm sure that we'll end up getting another tax increase any time. Anyway, just my opinion.
Yeah, well, listen, who knows? Clay County might be in the mix, Linda. You might be voting on a tax for the Royals if they end up in North Kansas City. That's potentially part of the equation.
I know.
So, then clearly, thank you, Linda. We know how Linda would vote on that potential sales tax in Clay County. So I get it. That's why this stuff is fairly controversial still. And it's not unique to one side of the political aisle. Listen, when people have been just beaten, think about the last 5 years in this country. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump's in the White House right now, because of cost of living. Inflation, 20% the last bunch of years, right? You've got that as step number one. You've got, a lot of other issues when it comes to what's happened to property taxes. You've got issues like what has happened. Go ahead, John. What's going on?
So this is more than a sports story is kind of what you're saying, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of things that people have been screwed by over the last few years. Grocery prices, home prices, property taxes, all this stuff has gone up. And people don't really feel like they have a say in any of it right now. So what do? They take out their frustrations where they can. Last April, it was the Chiefs and the Royals. Last November, it was Donald Trump. All this stuff does weave into each other in some way. And that's where you get the frustrations like what Linda's just voicing right there. And Scott Fawn said last hour on the show that there will be Republicans who voted for this who will be primaried, and one of those attacks will be they voted for bailouts for billionaires. So it was not a popular vote in Missouri. He alluded to Mike Kehoe maybe getting a primary in 2028, and they'll use this against him. From what I'm hearing, he's probably not wrong. And it may come from somebody inside of his inner circle, as far as I can tell, based on some of the rumors I'm hearing. So there is understandable frustration. But we got to this point, in part of how things went down last year with the vote, in part of how this Kansas Star Bond offer came to be last year, and the Missouri legislature, some of the powers that be, felt a lot of pressure because of this. And that's why this ultimately got done in the early morning hours. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. That is also the text line as well. On the text line, Pete, I'm with Linda. This is stunning. A special session was called for billion-dollar sports teams while people lose their houses because they can't pay their bleeping property taxes. Well, Joe Nicola, an independent state senator, was trying to get his property tax bill done. And it didn't happen last night. He was lobbying for it, but it didn't happen last night. They did pass two other bills in Missouri last night. And one of them was basically tornado relief for St. Louis, and then the other one was infrastructure funding for some key projects around the state of Missouri. And that includes an MU cancer reactor, a new mental health hospital here in Kansas City, and the assurance that no stadium project moves forward without local support. So that is something that Senate Democrats wanted, and that's why Mike Kehoe got this unique coalition of Republicans and Democrats to get this stadium funding across the finish line in the early morning hours. Pete, are you sure this bill, this is on the text line, are you sure this bill from the overnight hours for the Chiefs and the Royals is really across the finish line? What if the House says no, or the local vote that is undoubtedly coming says, nah, we're good? What happens then? Well, first off, the biggest hurdle was the Missouri State Senate. The House already passed this bill. The House passed a bill like this at the end of session about 3 weeks ago in Missouri. The bill then went to the Senate, and the Senate basically didn't take it up. So it's just the same bill, basically, the House already passed, going back to the House. It's going to get through on the House. The biggest hurdle that was left was the state Senate, and it got done. Now, whether or not there is a local element and how much local support does this have to have, whether it's a Royal Stadium or a Chiefs Stadium, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the bill right now, Senate Bill 3, and I've gone through it all, and it's not clear to me how you define local support. Is it, as Quentin Lucas said last hour, the city of Kansas City, Missouri, also bonding something out for a Royal Stadium? Or is it a vote of the people in Kansas City, Missouri? For the Chiefs, is it a vote of Jackson County residents, or is there something Jackson County can do without the taxpayers' input? I don't know what exactly that means and how you define it's got to have local support. And I've read through the Show Me Sports Investment Act, and that's not obvious to me either. But you know and I know that now that this offer is on the table from the state of Missouri, it feels like all but a done deal. They are going to stay on the Missouri side of the state line. Also on the text line, Pete, we can't build a jail, but we have money for the Chiefs. That's a little disingenuous. It's very disingenuous, actually. Very disingenuous. We couldn't build a jail because we had feckless politicians who bought into the idea of defund the police for the last half a decade. and were completely incompetent on the issue. Kansas City, Missouri shut down its jail over 10 years ago now. They didn't have a plan in place to replace that jail. They thought they could maybe latch onto the new Jackson County jail. Jackson County more or less told them to pound sand, so now they got to start building their own jail, which they're doing in the next 24 months or so. So I get the sentiment, but that's completely irrelevant to this story, John.
Yeah, part of that wrinkle was that Kansas City, for a period of time, leased jail from Jackson County, and then they said, oh, no, we don't have room for you guys anymore. We're getting a new place and don't have any room for you there either.
Yes.
So that's another part of the conflict.
Yes, exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up because I understand the frustrations being like, we don't have a jail, but, Chiefs, Royals. I get it, but they're completely different deals.
And the Jackson County Jail is being built down there at 40 Highway, so that's what's going on there.
And for years, Quentin Lucas wanted the city to basically share that jail, and because of the Frank White Quentin Lucas beef, which Quentin Lucas swears is not really there, but we all know is there. They never came to a deal.
Well, I think the city even wanted to get some land adjacent to that, and I don't think they're having any part of that. It's the latest wrinkles, so they're looking for all kinds of options in KCMO right now.
I almost called him Frank Lucas from American Gangster.
Yeah, whoops.
I don't know who would be more offended, Quentin Lucas or Frank White?
Or Frank Lucas.
Or Frank Lucas. Or Denzel Washington. Oh, man. I was like, wait, did I almost say Frank? I can't believe I haven't actually made that mistake before. Frank Lucas is also, I think he's a congressman down in Oklahoma who was representative for the western part of Oklahoma when I was down there. I think, is he still down there? He's still the guy. Oh, my goodness. Boy, do we need term limits for these guys. Frank Lucas has been the congressman for the 3rd District of Oklahoma since 2003. Can't these guys go get a real job at some point? My gosh. I mean, total sidebar here. But I remember covering Frank Lucas in Oklahoma 15 years ago. He's still there. Hey, get out of Congress. Go into the real world, buddy. Get a real job. It's enough. Enough.
You mustard moo.
Jeez. Never thought I'd be having a Frank Lucas conversation this morning, but here we are at 8:26. Whoa, some just brief breaking news here. Pete Thamel, ESPN reporter, sharing here that my alma mater, Villanova football, is leaving the CAA for the Patriot League, which will be effective in 2026. Fine, you guys can say it.
Nobody cares.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
I'm trying to think. There was one Chiefs player that was from Villanova. I can't think of his name right now.
Yes, there was. They had he was a backup, I believe, on one of the. I think it was a defensive lineman.
Tano Passanio?
I don't know.
I think it was.
I don't know. But either way, I just saw that from Pete Thamel here on X. Now, some breaking news last night. The President of the United States announcing travel bans. Here we go.
Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
There you go. There you go. That's my man right there. I know. People are going to try to treat this like it's 2017. Remember when Trump did travel bans back in 2017 and the media set up shop at like LAX and JFK and they had all these videos of, kind of chaos at the airports and it was like, who's allowed in? Who can't go? Oh my gosh, this is crazy policy. It's a different world. First off, if there was ever a doubt, everyone now knows the media is just totally full of it. Completely biased, and they lose a little bit more of whatever respect they had left every single day. Also, what's changed since 8 years ago? Well, the last guy that showed up here in the White House let upwards of 20 million people into the country. So
what are we talking about?
The sentiment on the issue of immigration has changed dramatically over the last, 4 years because of the policies of Joe Biden. Trump's immigration policies have actually been his most popular policies during his first 5 months in office. So I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of hysteria starting this morning around Trump travel bans circa 2017, but it's not going to work. It's not. The ban will fully restrict entry of nationals from these countries, and you heard Trump mention some of them: Afghanistan, Chad, Burma, Congo, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen. What do they all have in common? Well, I'll use the president's own words from a few years ago. Let's be honest. They're S-hole countries. No, don't worry, Mark. You don't have to hit the dump button on me there, okay? Like we cannot sit here and say with certainty who's coming in. Now, let's also be clear. The proclamation includes exceptions for lawful permanent residents, existing visa holders, and certain visa categories and individuals whose entry serves U.S. national interest. So it's not even really a travel ban. It's more of a travel ban for people who we can't confirm what their intentions are when they come to the country, right? That's really who it's for. If you got a visa, if you're a resident, if you are part of certain visa categories, you're fine. You're good. And I don't think that this is, frankly, anywhere near as controversial as some people are going to turn it into. Ashley's in Kansas City. Go ahead, Ashley. You're on KCMO.
Hello. I was married into a family that was from Eritrea, one of these countries that is on the banned list. My ex-father-in-law came here in the early 70s. He got his citizenship. He has dual citizenship. He sponsored his sister and brother-in-law and several family members to come here. They have gotten their citizenship. They are very, very proud Americans. My ex-father-in-law even has his pilot license, owns a fairly good-sized company here in town. I have spoken with them about immigration policies, and I have no problem speaking for them. I will speak to them today about this. They want to do everything they can to protect this country. There are a couple of my ex-husband's cousins who have actually renounced their citizenship in Eritrea because of some of the policies that go on there and the lack of safety. Eritrea is a third world country. I have been there. I was there in 2007. I am so glad that I got that experience, but it used to be part of Ethiopia until 1994. The kids that we saw in the 80s with the distended stomachs, those were Eritrean kids. Those weren't they were part of Ethiopia, but those were from the Eritrean side. Eritrea, the good Eritreans are doing everything that they can to prop up their economy and to be good citizens of the world. The problem is they can't get a foothold in their own country to control what's going on. It is a horrible situation for those who love their country and for those who want to be good people because they're being overrun by the bad.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. We greatly appreciate it.
Goodbye.
That's a great call. Yeah, Eritrea is in eastern Africa, borders Ethiopia and Sudan. So I'm sure that there's a woke white Karen in Prairie Village who's very upset with Ashley. But you know what? You got it there from the source. Proud Americans. And that's the thing. If you're a proud American, no matter where you came from, what your background is, this feels like something that is very easy to support.